Hello there. I am so glad that you are here tonight. I'm Kat Hobson. This is Paranormal Experienced, and I am just really enthused about my guests. One of them's not here yet, which is fine because my other one is. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that it's Sadie Hawkins Day. So if you're single and dating and you want to get married and he won't ask you, today's your day. You grab him and you get to propose. So, anyway, that being said, if I'm not with this one, I'm not doing anymore. We've been together for way, way long. And, but if you're looking for, a chance to do that, this is your day. It only happens every 4 years. So, I'm glad to see you. And tonight I have Nick Mulae, who is not here yet, but who is here is Tom McNicholas, and he is a paranormal wanderer, an adventurer. They find all these cool places to go. They live in the Midwest, and so everything is there. I live in the South, and everything is so spread out. I can't find haunted places. They're all haunted, but getting into them makes life exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Tom McNicholas in so you can meet him. Hey, Tom.
Hey, everybody, how are you?
I am so glad you're here. And Lori Dorsey is already in chat saying I'm watching.
Oh,
And
good.
she is my paranormal travel buddy and my best friend. So it's all good. But
Oh, you'll be pretty soon. You'll be heading out again.
I am ready. I've got the Ozark UFO conference coming up in Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Wow.
That's right? Yes.
Yeah.
Which is such a cool town. And have you gotten to explore there?
In Arkansas?
Yes.
I've been just north of Little Rock one time. That was about my only visit down to Arkansas. I went down there to see that big statue of Jesus, like in what is it, Peru? Or what's the name of the town in South America? Yeah, I know. I can't think of it.
Corpus. Lori, can you Google that? It's the town with the Jesus statue.
The Jesus statue.
It's not Buenos Aires.
It's
I want to say Corpus.
Isn't it where they have the Mardi Gras down there too?
I don't think they have Mardi Gras in Brazil.
Well, they have a different type of Mardi Gras down there. Is it Peru or is it it's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't get it out. If Nick was here, he spits it out. He's a rolling talking Rolodex. So
he really is.
Yes, he is.
He is so amazing. So I'm just going to find it right now. Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro.
There you go. Okay, thank you. That's even easier than the one than Peru.
I know, right?
I don't know why Peru just popped in my head. Well, if I sound a little groggy, as I'm on some painkillers and stuff for a back issue that I just had. So
yes, and for those that don't know, he has had a procedure, and he's still here. So I'm so impressed with him. He is just really tough.
A double spinal injection yesterday.
Yeah. I'm stunned that you're there sitting up. And I'm appreciative that you're there sitting up.
I'm actually on a pillow.
Oh, well, good.
I'm sitting on a pillow right now.
Is it helping?
Yeah. I'm not moving much, but I mean, I already kind of warned you I might have to get up and stretch. So when Nick's on and he starts talking, I can get up and move around then.
Well, he'll be here. He always does. But well, while we're waiting on him, I have always wondered. I know that y'all's community is close and tight. Y'all, there's so much that y'all can get to in a fairly short drive. And
pretty much, yeah.
I know. I'm so envious. But how did y'all actually get together? How did you meet Nick?
Well, Nick, I met almost like 15 years ago. He was um, he was attending like a film festival, and then they kind of had it doubled up with a little paranormal stuff. And Nick was like one of the go-to people that was there, and he was helping out. I didn't really get to know Nick that well at that time. It wasn't like about 3 years later that Nick worked on a film project that I was working on, and we got to know each other then. And then after that, we were like cross-nicked into the paranormal together, and I was like his official driver to all these events. And every place we could wander off the road, we would wander off the road. It was an experience. It was fun. Trying to keep Nick awake in the car, that was another story. But
Well, it's not really, I mean, it is okay. I don't mind driving. I love driving.
mhm.
But when your sidekick is snoring and it's been 12 hours and you're still kind of trying to hang on to that steering wheel till you get to where you can rest, it
Well,
makes stuff
Nick
exciting.
Nick gets in the car. The first thing he does is put on his headphones, and I don't know how he does it, but he can still hear when I ask him questions and talk to him. But he's listening to his music the entire time. And then when we get out of the car to go check out something, his battery always dies.
That's
Or he
par
went
for the
on,
course too.
or he unplugs my USB cable, which is connected to my GPS, and wants to charge his phone so he can listen to his music. And then the next thing I know, I don't know where I'm going. We have to find another way to get where we're going.
So you kind of have unexpected adventures.
Oh, Nick is a lot of fun.
He is a
Um,
lot of fun.
he's very determined. I mean, he gets it in his mindset that what he wants to do, and nothing can sway him from that. And me in the car, we're only like 15 minutes or 15 miles from a location, and he knows it off the top of his head already. And I said, okay, let's go. So we wander off the beaten path all the time, and we check out all of the little cities and all the little different interesting places. We like when we go to Ohio, oh my God, it's like a tour de force. I mean, we're off the road more than we're on the road, checking out
Ohio
different
is,
things.
they're full of
So,
great places, aren't they?
yeah, we stopped in cemeteries. We stopped well when we were in Alton, Illinois, coming back from Alton. We wandered through looking for the what they call it, the seven bridges.
Hmm.
Uh, it's supposedly some kind of lore about you got to cross under these seven bridges at midnight, and then what happens was you're going to see the Antichrist or something's going to happen after that. But I mean, you got to find those seven bridges, and you have to get them, go under all
So,
these bridges and check them all out. Nick
so
knows the
you were out
story.
looking. So you were out looking for the Antichrist on your
We,
way through town.
if it wasn't the Antichrist, it was the devil. Right? It
Yeah.
was one of those two things. It was in central Illinois. It was interesting, and so we were trying to find our way. Once we first found the first bridge, the rest of them were easy. We found, I think there were six of them, and we found five, and then we looked it up and tried to figure out where the other bridge was, and I guess it was off the beaten path. There was like a side road you would have to take, and then we could never find that little side road. So then we found out it was closed. The road was closed, and now it's back in a woods. So you'd almost have to pull over to go under the bridge. So
Oh,
I don't think I don't think anybody will see the devil or the Antichrist.
well, either way, it's just as
Uh
well not to. Hello, Nick
oh,
Hey
Mulae.
guys,
there he is.
I'm terribly sorry I'm late.
You're in so much trouble, little mister.
Uh,
Yeah, I kind of figured I would be.
you're
Nah.
always late.
We love
You're
you
always.
on time, early or late. We just think that you're pretty amazing. You're all good.
We
I
were
try
we were
my
talking
best.
about our road trips and how we venture off the road more than we're on the road looking for different things. I was just telling them about the six or seven bridges we went through in central Illinois, and what is
Oh
it, the
yeah,
devil?
the gateways to hell. It was in southern Illinois. Yeah,
So
yeah,
so it was the devil then you found at the end of it, or the devil would appear, right?
yeah. Some either that or you basically disappeared from existence and went to hell. Obviously.
So, we've been there before too.
Yeah.
Well, there is a hell, Arizona, so it's not out.
And
I think there's probably a hell everywhere.
when I lived in Ohio, we drove up to Hell, Michigan, just to say we went to Hell, got drunk, and came back.
Was
Let's
whiskey
not
involved?
forget, of course, Helltown, Ohio. We've been to also.
To Helltown, Ohio, we went to. Mike Ricksecker took us there to film part of his documentary there, and
Really?
he gave us the grand tour of the Helltown. Yeah,
He's a cool
by
guy.
by the time all the houses and all that stuff, most of them were all gone by the time we even got there. But the locks were there, and there was a couple of the bigger places still there, in the barn, which is supposed to be where it was like a meat place, wasn't it? A meat place, Nick, and then some guy hung himself by the rafters in the upper loft.
It's been a while, but yeah, I remember the hanging story. I don't remember it being like a meat process or whatever the case was.
It was
I know there was a hanging there, and typical of such abandoned locations like this. Obviously, you go today,
and then
you sometimes see satanic graffiti.
Yeah, and then usually the place was all locked up and you couldn't get into it. And then, sure enough, the day we went, the doors were wide open. We just walked right in, and then we walked around the upper part, then down into the basement, and then we filmed Mike Ricksecker's paranormal documentary series, the first part.
Yep, Shadow Dimension.
Yeah, we were in the Shadow Dimension. We didn't get asked for Shadow Dimension 2. I guess we didn't cross enough paths with Mike and his books, so we didn't find any portals, and we weren't into the space, and we weren't in Egypt, so I don't think there was much left.
Well, he still loves the paranormal, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's becoming quite a regular now on the History Channel, because it seems I know I wrote this a few days ago. It just seems like every time we're tuning into History Channel, there he is.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so much fun because I interviewed him last year, and I was in Vegas. It was I couldn't get anything to work right. I was such a basket case when we finally went on the air. I thought it was a terrible show. On my part, I felt like it was a terrible show. So I messaged him recently. I was like, would you like to come back on with me and have me not be uptight and tense and stuff? And he was like, I didn't notice that you were uptight and tense. I thought it was a great show. And I was like, I love you, Mike Ricksecker.
Well, you were talking about his books, and he was telling them his story, so that's all that matters.
Well, I thought it went pretty well. I was tongue tied, and which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like, what on earth? Yeah. And unfortunately, because we were live on the air, it wasn't one of those what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It was just like that bad show went everywhere. So but I just messaged him to see if he could come back, and he said that, well, sure. So we're going to do that.
We got to wish Nick a happy birthday. He had a birthday the other day.
That's correct.
Oh, that's right. Birthday guy.
Yeah. What are you, 32 now?
Yep, 32 years old.
Wow. I've known you ever since you were what? 20?
At least.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, you were before legal age.
You.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of fun.
I'm more three times as old as you.
What's even more fascinating,
no.
not only just for my age, and I'm either going to try to write it later tonight or sometime early tomorrow morning, but I'm actually saving on a really well-written Facebook post that I wrote, because I want everybody to know this. Because of my age now, I've also entered my 20th year being in the paranormal field. I made it. I'm basically a veteran, 20 years involved in the field, and I had I among what I wrote, and you guys will see this eventually, was to show how basically all the ranks that I climbed up, during these past 20 years, these, accomplishments, and along with pictures of me growing up. Some of them, may not look paranormal wise per se, but I really wanted to make it as realistic as possible, just to also show how far I really went from the time that I was 12 to the 20 years later to the time I'm now 32.
Right. You were an eager beaver back then, and now we got all pictures of you sleeping in our cars.
everybody talks about everybody talks about you sleeping in their cars, Nick.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, now I've discovered I'm not the only one who goes through that. If you guys know Jenny Davis, she's gone through the same thing too.
Jenny
That's
Davis
one
is a
thing we have in
riot.
common.
Oh my gosh. You should come because she was at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash last year. You should come too.
I
Yeah.
really want to. Trust me, I really do. It's just a matter of trying to get out there, obviously.
Well,
yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
were
be
we were
there.
in
Oh, there's
we were,
Victoria Monday.
yeah. Well,
Victoria?
speaking of Victoria, we were just about to, we'll go down to see her in Texas, but since I'm having this difficulty walking and stuff, I don't know how I'd be getting down there and keeping up to everybody.
Well, you're going to give yourself time to heal from your injections, and then you can give that a go.
Yeah.
If we
So
got-
hi, Victoria.
It's still it's still a month away because it's like near the end of March, I think. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see where things go, as we approach the end of March.
Yeah. What did she say?
The sexiest men in the paranormal show tonight.
Uh,
Be
Oh,
jealous, Victoria. Be jealous. I've got them both.
well, she met Nick, and she hasn't met me yet.
Yeah, I know.
And
Yeah, if you guys, when I finally met Victoria in person, basically just a few months ago at the Michigan Paracon, which I found out she drove all the way from Texas to
all
Michigan.
the way from
Yeah.
Texas.
I'm thinking to myself, jeez, that had to have been
Yeah.
quite a journey for her. I mean, it just like, I don't know how anybody could do that, but anyways, I finally
Well,
got
you
to
would
meet
have been sleeping, so it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
hard for you.
her. Well,
even
either way, I got to meet her in person. She was even nice enough to let me sit at her vendor table for a little while because
Was she as lovely as you thought she was going to be?
yes, she was. Because for the most part, unlike most paracons, like we're usually Tom's with me, this was one of the paracons that I
you
was
were with
pretty much
Dan.
on my own. So when Victoria offered me to sit at her table, it was just a very kind of thing. I hung out with her for quite a 3,000 miles plus. Jeez.
Yeah.
So she's very sweet. She's
She is
fantastic.
very sweet.
You both like to talk, so it's a perfect match.
Maybe that's why Victoria and I get along so well. What do you think,
Yeah.
Victoria? Probably, right?
Probably.
Yeah,
I just try to get her on the phone, and she never has time for me.
I bet that's not true.
Well, she wants me to call her or text her and tell her when I'm going to talk to her on the phone or something, and we just never matched that, I guess. And all I was going to do is just ask her a couple of questions about Texas, San Antonio area, actually.
Well, I'm sure she has answers, so it'll come together.
Oh, I know. And
So
I can't see if she's saying anything. So
she said, "And the beach."
And the beach. No, I don't like beaches. That's one
you
thing
been
I
to
do.
one?
Oh,
Really?
I've been to the.
I didn't know that.
I've been to the ocean. I've been to Lake Michigan. I don't like either one.
Well, I wouldn't like Lake Michigan, but which beach, which ocean beach did you go to?
I was on the Atlantic side, and I was doing a scuba dive off of the coast of Pompano Beach, Florida.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I did a dive out there, and it was crazy. But I don't like the beach.
Yeah, was it the wildlife or the water?
No, it was the water. I was scuba diving. It was like 40 feet of water.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was like my first time in the Atlantic Ocean. The last Atlantic Ocean I dived in North Carolina. I dove the graveyard of the Atlantic.
Oh yes, the great
130 feet underwater with 15-foot brown tiger sharks swimming around you.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a frequent
No.
area of sharks that they often patrol that area. So kind of a big hangout area for them, in other words.
Well, I should have
Well-
clarified that every 10 years or so I reinvent myself and I try a new activity. I mean, I've done scuba diving for a little over 10 years. The paranormal, I've been always in and out of the paranormal. Then I was a filmmaker and producer for 15 years.
really?
Well, like I said, that's where Nick and I finally touched base together and they had a chance to really get to know each other. And then the next thing you know, that's when we started hanging out doing the paranormal stuff. But I've known Nick since he was like a knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not that long.
That's a good way to put it.
So, and Victoria says she did a Caribbean pirate tour, and Carl laughs at me, right? Because he has, with his laser engravings, which I just got one, a machine.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm waiting on my vent thingy to come. It should be here, but it will be. But anyway, so he has a fabulous pirate design. And my high school team were the Buccaneers, right? I've been a pirate my whole life. And so, and I'm a big Key West person. I went every year with my girlfriends for like 20 years, right around in there. And that's actually where I broke my knee, just to be different, have a different start to the trip. And I didn't even have a drink. I had just gotten off the plane. We weren't even in our condo yet. It was so funny. There is the design. Carl yes. Wow. Is that not incredible?
Nice.
So he's going to be sharing that with me, and that's going to be something that I'm playing with and loving. So I'm going to put it on some of my stuff.
Yeah, probably. Put it in a PDF format, and then it saves the resolution of it. So you can make it bigger or smaller, and it doesn't really lose a lot of resolution.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's where you can make the little pictures into big posters.
Well, I'm going to have Carl's blessing for that first, but we'll talk about that when I get that from him. But because he's really excited to help me get started with that, I'm going to try to make things to take with me when I go to conferences, and have like Fate Magazine radio and Paranormal Experience radio, and things and cool stuff to share, because last year when I did the Battlefield Bash, I use bells. I have bells, and this is mine. But I gave them away at the Battlefield Bash and asked people if they would use them. Huh?
No, I had to look on the big screen.
Oh, there.
My phone. There you go. Oh, those are nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, the ones that I was giving away aren't quite as ornate, because I just ordered a case of them and took them with me, because mine goes off. And I thought, all these people at the Battlefield Bash are paranormal investigators.
Oh, wow.
So I took the bells to give people and said, look, the only caveat, I don't want anything for them. The only caveat is I want you to try it in your investigations. And if you get any interaction with it, just let me know.
Oh, that's interesting to leave a trinket around and see if it picks up an EMF or something off of it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I get. That's in my house sometimes. Right?
Oh, the bell?
That sound. And
it sits really?
And it sits in here in the office on my desk all the time.
Oh, it just goes off?
And I have family here. And so periodically it does. And the first time I did it, I was like, where are the dogs? How did they get up there? Was not the dogs. But it doesn't do it very often, but it's enough that I wanted to give other people bells to try it with.
I have a bell over on the floor by my cat's treats, and I wanted to try to get her to ring the bell when she wants a treat.
Yeah,
she hasn't done it yet, so.
I guess she hasn't wanted one bad enough yet, right?
Oh, so. She's got a routine. When I turn the TV off at night, she jumps wherever she's at and runs over to the treat. She knows she's going to get a treat before I go to bed.
My dogs do that.
Yeah.
When I get off the air on show nights, they're straight to the kitchen.
Right.
So, because they know 9 o'clock is treat time.
They know your routine. They memorize your routine. That's why she knows when I'm coming in the house, because she's in the hallway when I come in the house. And then when I go to the bathroom, when I get off the couch, she knows I'm going to the bathroom. So she tries to beat me there, which I got to be real careful for now, because she goes right under my feet.
Right.
right in my pathway, so I have to grab the walls to kind of walk across there because obviously I've been not walking very good.
Yeah.
But today I'm not using my cane to walk around, so
Well,
I
that's
haven't gone
good.
out. I haven't gone outside yet, but I mean, I take it with me. I got a spare one in the car, and I got one up here. So, in case I forget it here, I got one in my car.
Good deal.
But hopefully, this double injection I had yesterday is the clincher. Once you get over the shock of being stuck in your back with a couple needles in two different sides, they got to numb you, and then
Yeah.
hopefully you don't feel it. The last time it felt like my leg was going to go up in the air. It was just that much stabbing pain that went right from my lower back all the way down my legs. This
Holy
last
cow.
time yesterday I didn't feel that at all. He said you may feel shooting pain down your leg. I says, oh, okay, I'm ready. Nope, didn't happen.
So it's already an improvement over the first experience.
Yeah. So we'll just see how that goes, and I let everybody at work know how I'm doing, and everybody's concerned now. I've been off almost like a summer vacation already, but it's all coming out of my own time. So
Yeah.
eventually I'm going to run out of time. Then I'm not going to have anything. I got to find some other way of making some money.
Well, the thing about that is that's the reason that mostly we want to use that time for vacays and stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
also there so that if we do have a health issue, that we can manage that.
Well, I work at a school with special need kids, and I've been there 6 years, and very seldom I took a day off. I was faithful. I'm always there on time, before time, all the time, and I never used any personal time. So I accumulated 6 years for this current predicament, I guess.
You accumulated 6 years?
6 years of personal time. I think we get like 20 days a year and 2 personal days, because we're not allowed to schedule vacations when you're on the clock because it's government based and you're funded off of a contract. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I was just curious because I volunteer when I can with the Exceptional Foundation. Do they have that up there?
I'm not sure. I'm not really
Okay.
sure.
Well, I'll research that because it's a really good organization. And April is Denise's cousin, and she said you work with special needs kids,
I
and
sure
he
do.
does.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, the high school kids. They're
yeah.
high school age. I have them in my class from 15 to 21. Yeah, so it's challenging. It's rewarding too. You can't help but love these kids, and but the kids respond to me so great. It must be my youthful energy I had. Now they're carrying me around the halls.
All about balance, right? All about
Yeah,
balance.
I know.
Well,
And then we got a couple of paranormal things coming up, and I know Nick's got his little pen and paper already written down with all these events coming up, and I'm
Yep.
hoping. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm able to walk because, I mean, I could drive. I could drive anywhere, walk, and
yeah.
I'm just like grandpapa. You know,
But you know what? You're walking.
I'm walking a little better now. Yeah.
So, and
I did that the first time for a little bit, and then in the second week, I was in more pain than I was when I first started it, and literally, I had to crawl. And one time I was trying to get out of the bathtub, I thought I was going to be stuck in the bathtub for the rest of my life because I could not turn and get out of the tub. I couldn't balance myself to get out of the tub. It was terrible,
that
and
is terrible.
it's scared the hell out of me because I live by myself and I don't think my cat's going to pull me out of the bathtub. So
Nope. Well, I'm glad that you got out
yeah,
because, when you live alone, and it's really very disconcerting when something happens. When I broke my knee, I my daughter-in-law took care of me a lot, but there were times I was in the house by myself, and it was just kind of like I was in bed for 3 months. And
Oh,
I was just kind of like, well, you know, ah. And fortunately, I have a husband who loves and adores me and makes sure that, everything is copacetic, but he also has a business to run.
yeah.
So I was just like very still when I was in the house by myself. I
Yeah.
didn't do anything. And he made me a box to put over my leg because if I moved it, I could lose it. So he made a box to put over it so that the dogs could be on the bed, but they wouldn't wiggle my leg.
Oh,
Because if it got
yeah.
displaced at all, then I could, that was going to be immediate
Excuse me.
surgery and away it would go. But that didn't happen. So I'm going to claim that. I'm going to claim that you're good too. So,
Okay.
Nick, where's your notes?
I know.
Where are you going, man? Where are you going?
The notes are in his
and
head.
I always write whenever I discover, these paranormal events. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going, but just so I have it
Just
on
the
the
ones
list.
that you want to hit.
So the ones that I want to hit for this year, give me a second while I'm getting this ready. So we got, well, obviously, depending how Tom's doing, we mentioned the aforementioned Lone Star Marathon. That is one I'd like to go to.
Right.
Yeah.
And
We were planning on it.
yeah, of course, you got Parapsychon in Mansfield, Ohio. We always get a kick out of going to that one.
Yeah.
There's a new one that's coming up also in Wisconsin called the Wisconsin Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention. That's going to be in Appleton. And yeah, so not as far. See what else. Of course, we always love going to Silicon. So Silicon's going to be coming up again.
Yes.
They already planned. That's coming up later this year.
Yeah, that's September. Yeah.
The Haunted Rock Island Roadhouse Paracon. I heard there's like a lot of big names coming out to that too. And yes, hang on a second. I saw what Jeremy. Yes, Jeremy, I do have Para-Unity written down.
Or you were going to be in so much trouble.
He is. What is that like? In May or something, right? First part of May, isn't it?
No, that's not till October.
Oh, okay.
And where is that?
Then. That is in I can't remember. I can't remember the actual name. I know it's in Miami County, Indiana.
Oh, I remember what was earlier than that. That was Jeremy was talking about the prison, going back to the prison.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's in Peru, Indiana. Thank you.
Well, the Para-Unity is in Peru, but I think we were talking about the
jail.
Crown Point, yeah.
You got it. Yeah, we have the Old Lake County, Crown Point Jail coming up in May also. So May's going to be pretty busy for us. And again, this is just for my part, and not just for this case with a lot of the Paracons. I really want to try to make this a real special year as far as the paranormal is concerned. Again, for my 20th year, pretty much I'm trying to get out as much as I possibly can.
Sure.
But yeah,
me too. Me too, Nick.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I want to get my Me Too there also because I'm starting later this month. Well, that's not true. I'm starting in April with the Ozark UFO conference, and I have never been to a Para-Unity conference.
Well, now you got a chance.
So now I've got a chance. I'm going to have to talk to David about schedule stuff. But it's really cool because y'all don't just do conferences, though. Y'all investigate where you go, and I just think that is A, I think y'all's relationship is so special, but B, I think it's cool that y'all actually paranormal road trip. You hear so many people talk about wanting to do that, or people that are like, oh, well, we do this. Well, y'all really, really do. And that's one of the things that I think is so cool because, Nick, I mean, your enthusiasm is so contagious. And I love talking to you, and I love the energy that you bring to the paranormal. And, Tom, you're go get it. And I'm just ready. Yes, let's do this. I mean, y'all are such a good team for stuff like that. Well, I mean, right now it's a different story for the moment, but It's just for the
Yeah.
moment. But that's
Yeah.
y'all's attitudes. I think it's so fun and so neat.
We took our road trip to New York one time. We went to the Wildwood Sanatorium, and then we got a hold of Daniel Class, and he gave us access to the Hinsdale house.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
he
now I've
wasn't
got to
there.
stop you.
What?
Now I've got to stop you. I have
Okay.
not been to either one of those places, and I know Daniel. Um,
Yeah.
and I know the reputation of Hinsdale. I do not know the reputation per se, what I would go into Wildwood expecting.
Wildwood Sanatorium is in Salamanica. Is that how you
Salamanca,
say it?
Salamanca, New
Salaman,
York.
New York, and that's about a 30-minute drive from the Hinsdale house. And they also have this huge casino hotel there, and that's where Nick and I stayed. So we had a blast. We were playing
Yeah,
Buffalo.
we were not only that. I still remember this is like two years later already when we had this really nice room at this place too. It was a lot larger, I think, than we bargained for. But after we got unpacked and got settled in, we decided to go down to the casino just to kind of check it out. So we get out of the elevator, and once we get on the floor that we get to, we walk out. There's these people that are going by, and Tom's like, "Hey, what floor am I on?"
I had too many drinks ahead of that, I guess.
It happens, especially in a casino,
Yeah.
because they just keep bringing them.
Well,
They
I
do.
know. And
Yeah.
And this is a
then
casino that's like when you go out to that area, especially of South, everybody always thinks, you think of a state like New York, and you immediately think of New York City, obviously. Well, most people kind of forget the fact that when you're not going to that area, New York is a pretty rural state. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just nothing but Appalachian mountains and forests all over the place. I mean, it lives up to the name up. That's why it's called upstate. And
oh yeah.
this casino, I mean, Salamanca is a relatively small town, with
In
these
the hills.
mountain areas, but you have this casino that's literally like the biggest building out there, standing pretty much out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my. Well, casinos are impressive anyway. I mean, because
Yeah.
they have all that money to put into them to get people to come.
I think we
It
wore
doesn't have a
Nick out.
Walmart, as Jeremy said.
We
He said
kind
it
of
doesn't
wore
have
out.
a Walmart that small.
Well, you got to search for the Walmarts. We always seem to find one. I think that across the street from the casino, there was the little strip mall shopping center there.
Yeah, there
I
was.
don't remember. I don't remember if there was a Walmart though, but
I didn't remember
was,
seeing that either, but I will say one thing. Despite that it's a very small town, what I did find interesting about this town, and I honestly didn't think they really have this many groups, even in a state like New York, but obviously this proved me wrong, was that this was one of those towns that a good majority of the population that lived there were literally full-blooded Native Americans. Something we just don't have really that many reservations or a huge demographic of Native Americans here in Chicago. So
Yeah.
upon seeing these people, like it was just an amazing sight to see, just seeing the culture, obviously.
Yeah.
Well,
the Hinsdale house is based on the lore of the Indians up in Salamanica, Hinsdale, or wherever they're from up there. Yeah. Well, that's the name. The name itself would give it away of being an Indian reservation. So
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Algonquin tribe is what was so populated so much of northern New York.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I find interesting because we don't have that here. We don't have Algonquin here. We have Cherokee, Choctaw, Porch, Creek, a lot of different tribes here. But I found it interesting that all of those tribes are so regional.
Yeah.
Like while they would migrate, they wouldn't migrate far.
Well, Ohio's got the Indians. It's got the Chippewas. They got the Senecas. They had the what was the other one up there? Ohio had a lot of places up there that were all Indian based. I lived in Seneca County when I lived in Ohio, so I mean, they were right there. It tells you, then there was a Fort Seneca that just north of the
Mhm.
town where I lived, and that was supposed to be based. An Indian reservation was there at one point.
Well, I
So,
know that in Defiance, there's a monument relevant to Indian interaction.
mhm,
So, because when I go to the old Paulding Jail in Paulding, Ohio,
mhm,
Oh
and
yeah.
when I can, I haven't been for a couple of years, but I'm so ready to go back. That jail is off the chain. If you haven't been, you got to
uh,
go. It's unbelievable. But
and like,
it's so interesting because when I was playing around in Defiance, it was really a cool little town.
mhm,
And sometimes, Jeremy, that's the way it goes because people don't want the casinos don't want you leaving. They want
right,
everything to be consolidated in that structure.
yeah,
And that's like if you go to Vegas, if you stay at Paris, then they've got the restaurants and they've got the shops and they've got all the stuff. And if you want to do an excursion, they'll hook you up, right? They don't want you taking your money outside of that area. And that's probably why there's a casino, Jeremy, because they control that. And that's probably why there's not a Walmart. They probably don't want one.
yeah.
So
Jeremy was up there with us when we were
Yeah, he
there.
was. He
he said
was.
he's been there 5 times. So,
Yeah. Well, I had won an overnight investigation for 10 people to
oh,
the Wildwood Sanatorium. And then I told Daniel about it because he's affiliated with
mhm.
that one and the Hinsdale House. And then I was talking to him by text and I asked him about the Hinsdale House. So he gave me the lockbox, access and everything. And then I just opened up the house like it was our house.
Yeah,
Went inside. Nick ran to the living room and fell asleep on the couch.
of course he
Well, it's not
did.
even necessarily that I fell asleep on the couch. I had I had
Well,
one of
it's
my headaches or
one of
my
your pre-migraines that they should have
yeah,
been
I was getting
diagnosed it 2 years ago.
I was
Yeah.
having the brightness in my eyes and my head
Mhm.
started hurting. I had to take I don't take anymore. I took my medicine that often would help. And a lot of times that stuff would knock me out. So unfortunately, I didn't really get to have as much of a chance as I was hoping
Yeah,
to investigate the different areas of the Hinsdale house, especially the woods, which was what I really wanted to do. But obviously, like any injury, you have no control over the
you
situation.
don't.
Of course, you're
No.
just in along for the ride.
Well, the Hinsdale house, the woods are more active than the actual house
Yeah,
itself. So Nick
Why
was
is
safe
that?
on because it's all Indian. And the lure of the place was there was a hanging tree that was like down the road from the Hinsdale house
Hmm.
where apparently someone got hung there. Uh, do you know that story, Nick, about the
I
hanging tree?
I've only heard a little bit about it, but
It,
so
it was
I
on
don't know.
that it
I
was on
don't
that
know.
drive as you were coming down to go to the
Yeah,
Hinsdale house. Yeah.
I don't know too much about the hanging tree, but I do know that's not the only death that occurred. They said that those woods behind the Hinsdale house is just literally filled with death. In fact, if you
Yeah.
guys remember the old series Haunting, before
Hmm.
Daniel, purchased the house when the original family
Uh-huh.
lived there, they said that many people died in all different ways over the past 100 years. Some were suicide, some were
Mhm.
murder, some were natural causes.
And
It was
drowning in the pond
drownings.
on
Yep. I mean,
his.
it
Yeah.
was it was almost everything you could think of pretty much occurred in those woods. I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to know. Of course, all of the actual deaths that occurred in those woods, but I'm
Oh
sure
yeah.
there must be lists of deaths involving that area.
Well,
Yeah.
probably most of them are unknown because they would have been before that was settled too. Because
Right,
um, upstate New York, I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I am, was primarily hunting and trading. It
right.
was not. I mean, and
I,
the Native Americans who lived there didn't really interact very much.
Yeah.
yeah, they
So
were
Well,
mostly isolated tribe compared to many others.
yeah,
I walked up the steps to the back and went up to the top of the hill, and it was creepy up there. I
I'm
tell you, it
sure.
was dark and it was creepy. And I told Daniel, they had the tree that was supposed to be for to hang things on there for a tribute or a gift.
Mhm.
I never saw it. It was so dark up there, and I didn't want to wander because we were warned about the neighbors. They don't like people, especially up on top of the hill, because it overlooks their place as well. And you go through the brush a little bit, and you're overlooking their house. So, you know, I didn't want to push
Don't
it.
want to
Then I
risk it
saw
in the long term.
then and then Nick finally woke up, and I saw him coming up the steps, and I said, "Come on, let's go." So we walked up to the top of the steps. I don't even think you got to the top, did you?
No, I didn't, because I was still weakened from. I was still kind of in my weakened state, when the headache finally disappeared.
Yeah. Well, we did a tour of the house, and I was a little intimidated about going in the basement because I'm not a big bug up person, so I didn't
Right.
really want to go down there. I sent Nick down there.
Yep.
We all have to have our guinea pigs, right?
Yeah.
Usually I'm the guinea pig, so that's okay.
Jeremy-
Nick, I feel
Jeremy-
you, man.
Jeremy sat in the kitchen for the most part, and then Nick joined him in the kitchen, and I was like wandering the house upstairs by myself until I sat in the one closet, and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and then I'm seeing these things in the mirror, and I said, okay, it's time to go join Nick and Jeremy downstairs.
Okay, we're not letting that slide. What kind of things?
Well, I had my camera out, and I was looking at myself, and I was taking a movie of me just asking questions. Is there anybody here? Anybody want to talk? Then all of a sudden, I saw, it could have been dust, but an orb that just kind of went out of my mouth in the mirror, and then it just went up into the air. So I said, I'm just like, okay, I had enough of this. I said, I'll go back downstairs. And then Jeremy and Nick were sitting in the kitchen, and then we basically signed the walls, and then we took off back, and then we stopped by Jamestown, where Lucille Ball was living, and then
Right.
we found the cemetery and visited Lucille Ball's grave there, and then we took back and
I
went
didn't know
back, and
that she went back and was buried in Jamestown.
she was originally interred in the Hollywood Cemetery, and
Yeah,
then
well,
she was
Forever, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
and so she was moved to her hometown in Jamestown.
Well, that's really pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and then you go in there, and of course we take the wrong way, and we're going all the way around the
Yeah.
cemetery instead of taking a right, and then you can see the little "I Love Lucy" hearts that lead you right to her grave, and you pull over and just walk up a little step, and then there's her grave.
That's pretty
She's
cool.
She's buried
Yeah.
with her family.
We have a question from Victoria, and she wants to know, did y'all ever make it to the Conjuring House before it closed?
No, the closest I got to the Conjuring House was when I was in Connecticut. I stopped at the Lizzie Borden house and did a overnight at the Lizzie Borden house. And I didn't realize the Conjuring House was only like a half-hour drive from there.
Yeah, just right.
Yeah, I
across
hate
the
when I have
Massachusetts-
moments like that.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
right across the Massachusetts Rhode Island border. practically.
Right. Oh, I said Connecticut. I meant Rhode Island. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's in Rhode Island.
Mhm.
Massachusetts is where
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden was. Yeah. And then when we pulled over, I went to the bathroom there, and I bought an instant lottery ticket and won $1,000. And we were in Plymouth. What do they call it? Cape Cod, Plymouth.
Yeah,
Is
Cape
it
Cod, Massachusetts.
Cape Cod, and then we had to search around Connecticut to try to find a place to cash my $1,000. One lady offered me $500 for it, so she would give it to me in cash right now. She said, "I said nope. I'll
No,
find a
thank you.
supermarket, and then I'll find a supermarket that cashes that." And then when I was in the supermarket cashing the lottery office cashing it, I won another $100 in the thing, and they wouldn't cash it in there at the lottery office. I had to go to the supermarket, and then I went to the supermarket, cashed in the $100, and then I was going out. I put another $10 in the thing, and I won another $100. So it literally
You were
paid
on
for
a
my.
roll, man.
This was his lucky day.
Wow, that was your lucky day.
Yeah, and then when we went back, we stopped in Salem, Massachusetts, and we toured around there. I've been there before. we didn't go into anything big. We just kind of walked through the mall and walked around by the uh, what do they call that? Is the lake or is that the ocean? I don't even know. But where the harbor was, harbor.
Mhm.
That's what it was. It was a harbor. And so then we were walking back, got in our car, and then we're heading into Massachusetts. And we were going to get on 90 because that takes you right back to Chicago. And then all of a sudden, we heard this ungodly scream coming from the side of the highway as we're going down, and it gave me cold chills, and gave a friend of mine, what was that? And I says, I don't know. I said that I slowed down and pulled the car over, and there was nobody there. All this big shrieking scream that came. I said, you know what? Let's get in the car and go, because I said, I don't think I hit anybody. I would have hurt a thumb.
Yes.
Let's get in the car and get the hell out of Massachusetts.
I would have been freaking out.
Oh, it did freak us out. It's just giant scream out of nowhere coming back from Salem, Massachusetts. I said, I must tried to bring a witch back, and
You
she
picked
just
up
got
somebody.
picked
Yeah.
up a witch, and she just got mad and took off. Yeah.
Or she wasn't allowed to leave.
And then that was
And
another time where we were heading back, and then it got too dark, and we couldn't find any place to stay. And Nick can relate to this one coming back from New York the other time. So we spent an overnight sitting in a parking lot outside Buffalo, New York, and trying to sleep in the car. And then finally, when it got light, we cut across Buffalo through Niagara Falls, and then went into Canada, and then went to the Niagara River and looked at the falls. And then there was like nobody there because it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. So there was nobody there, and we're in Canada at this time. So then we run over to the thing, and we had the whole falls to ourselves, and it was
oh
like
wow.
wild. Then we got in the car and took off and went all through Canada, all the way to Windsor, Ontario, and then stayed at Howard Johnson's in Windsor, Ontario. Then we went to the casino, and then we hit back and went in through Detroit, and then from that point, I knew it was only 6 hours to home.
How long was that drive overall?
From Massachusetts all the way, it was like 18 hours. It was a long drive. Yeah.
That is a long drive.
And then coming back from our Nick and I's trip from New York, I did the same thing. It got dark, and then we're trying every stop to try to find a hotel, and all the hotels were over $200 for one night because it's already like almost considered the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we drove by Madison Seminary.
Yeah,
Seminary.
That's where Ray Goose was.
Yeah, and then we went in there, and we drove up and actually parked the car. We were taking pictures and stuff, and then we found out a friend of ours was in there.
I realized we could have just went on.
We could have just went in there and investigated, but then it would have made it any easier for me because we didn't have a hotel anywhere. So I wound up having to drive the entire 10-hour night drive all the way back to Chicago. And I'm telling you, it
was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was struggling so hard to try to stay awake from him, but the exhaustion was getting the best of me. And I was also hoping that
you didn't try very hard.
Well, I know it doesn't seem like it, but deep down I was trying. But I was also hoping that, once, because you hear it all the time. You drive through a state like Indiana, you can get out of there like within 3.5, 4 hours. You can get out of there real quick when you drive across the entire state. But Ohio, on the other hand,
Ohio is wide.
Yeah, it's because it's a wider state. Obviously, it takes a lot longer to get through. So.
Yeah.
I was hoping that, we're not too far from the Ohio-Indiana border. So I was silently trying to hope that, maybe once we got into Indiana, the prices would be cheaper than it was in Ohio, because you see that a lot. It usually is like that in most states. Well, unfortunately, once we entered Indiana, it didn't matter. It was the same issue there too. there was no true escape from this, unfortunately.
Well, we could have pulled over and rested, and gave ourselves a little break. But I think we did stop at almost every road park all the way back, to Chicago, just to get my eyes adjusted, because those headlights coming at you are a pain in the butt.
They
Yeah.
are. Yeah, we stopped. We stopped at a few of the rest stops, and I don't know if I ever told you this, Tom, but there was one rest stop that we stopped at. This was when we were still in Ohio. That we stopped at and we were at for a little while, and I was under the impression at first that we were just going to use the bathroom or just stretch our feet or whatnot. So I ended up staying up, during that time for them because again I was trying to stay awake. Well, then I realized that, but when I realized we were going to be there that we had been there for a while, I thought, well, this might be a good time for me to close my eyes since we're not going anywhere. But unfortunately, just before I was about to do that, that's when Tom put the pedal to the metal and we started back. I'm like, oh, really?
Look, it doesn't take me long to go to a bathroom. My God, what do you mean it took me forever to go to the bathroom? You said
no. I mean, even when you were sitting in the car,
they gave him enough time to get situated. He thought he was snoozing, and you were going.
Yeah.
You
Oh, you
snooze, you
guys.
lose. Yeah, yeah. And then what other good adventure did we have? Well, when we were in Ohio, we went. We always take 30 all the way across the state of Ohio. There's a lot of interesting places around Route 30 all the way through Ohio. And we stopped at a covered bridge a couple times, and we stopped at what was that other place we stopped at in Ohio? Oh, where the tornado went through. And then we took a detour. Yeah, then we took a detour.
Okay. Well, if you're at Van Wert, you were right by Paulding.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot it was near that area.
It is. It's like 30 minutes from Van Wert.
Yeah, because because every time we enter, and I'm sure we're going to do it again. Every time we go to Mansfield, Van Wert is because it's right again on the Indiana-Ohio border. That's like literally one of the first, if not the first town that we always enter.
Well, we never know where we're going to cross into Ohio. I mean, typically when we take 30, we would cross through Fort Wayne and then go into Ohio. But the last couple of times we took detours further south, and we wound up at James Dean's grave in Indiana, and then we drove, and then we went by the Monroe House, so we had to stop and say hello to the Monroe House because that's right next to where you cross into Ohio. So yeah, we get around.
And
you do get around.
And James Dean's grave, if you didn't know this, Cat, is that I mean it's often decorated, but it's not just like with certain items or whatever. It's gone so far that there's even you could actually find lips markings on the grave itself. So even his grave has been kissed, as a matter of fact.
Oh yeah, the kissing stains on the tomb. I mean, they couldn't get the kiss stains off his headstone. I mean,
that was good lipstick then.
Yeah, it must have been. They had a lot of that acid in it. The kind of, what do they call that? Hydrochloric acid or whatever.
Hyaluronic acid.
Yeah. So they ate right into his tomb.
Wow.
Yeah. Tombstone. He didn't have much of a grave. He was only like right off of the main road. Boom, right there. It was right there. And then, I'm not even going to mention about what I had to do when I got there.
Don't remind me.
Okay, I'm going to leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say definitely.
Okay, we're leaving that one alone for sure.
I had to go to the bathroom.
Okay. At James Dean's grave?
No, I felt.
Oh my God, no!
It was a tree next to it.
Okay, we're good.
Across the way, But then I didn't realize that they were having some kind of ceremony adjacent to that. So here I am standing by the tree.
Did you make new friends and influence people?
I sure did.
It was just like Ray said, Tom, what the hell were you thinking?
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Well, I didn't know that they had cameras all over the place too. So
did you make the news?
Pull us over.
Oh yeah.
Did you make the news?
No, not that time.
Oh, you are such a rascal. That's funny.
So we make these little detours all the time, and we talked about the seeing James Dean's grave at one time, but we didn't get over to it. But we were at the Monroe house, and so we must have went right through his town to get back onto the route to take you back up to Fort Wayne, because we had a kind of diverter way all the way back up. We almost wound up in Dayton, Ohio,
No, good.
because we took a wrong turn, and then Nick started saying about going to Xenia because they had a twister on the ground in Xenia, Ohio. That was like a couple years right before I moved to Ohio. They had that big tornado. Yeah, because I moved there in 1977, and then I lived there.
The outbreak occurred a few years prior in '74, which we actually talked about previously. That was during the super outbreak that went from all the way from Illinois to Alabama. So we weren't too far from Xenia at that time, which I've been to Xenia itself. It's actually a really nice little town, but you just can't help but think about what happened there over 50 years ago.
Well, it's like the one time we were coming back from Ohio, and I got lost, and we wound up in Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Boy, that was a heck of a wrong turn.
It was late. That was a late night too. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but I mean, when you get right around South Bend, you're a rock throw to Michigan.
Okay.
From South Bend across, because the Route 90, it just goes right by there. And then you get to Niles, Michigan. It's on the other side of the highway from South Bend. Yeah, so my cousin lived in Niles for a while. And then if you wanted to go to Hell, you got to go kind of back a little bit. But that's where Hell, Michigan was.
That's somebody sent a letter to me that they had sent to Hell, Michigan to have postmarked and sent to me. I thought that was funny. Yeah.
Oh.
So I was just like, were you in Hell? They're like, well, actually, no, I had somebody do that.
I can't help but think to myself thinking, just imagine like if, someone sent you somewhere, like, if it was like for work, or if someone wanted you to go check out this place, basically saying, hey, you got to go out in this place. It's like, oh, it sounds really cool. Where do I go? All you got to do is go to Hell.
Go to Hell.
Then I would say, I'll meet you there. So
that's what
my
I said.
standard answer to that.
That was our answer from when we took the drive up there. We said we wanted to go to Hell and come back.
Well, at least the comeback part has to be in play.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, with all of this road tripping, and you've seen so many really iconic locations.
Mm-hmm.
What's left that you want to go and look at? What's your okay? Let me start here. What is your number one place you haven't been that you're just you're going to?
Well, everybody talks about Missouri and Iowa, and we have not done those areas at all. Well, take it back. We went to Missouri while we were in Alton. We went to the
Lemp Mansion.
The Lemp Mansion to have a Sunday brunch in the Lemp Mansion, and then we took off and went into St. Louis, and we went by the Exorcist house in St. Louis. And
was that when it was still there?
Well, it's still there now.
It's still there today, but to this day, it's still a residential house. So you cannot just.
I thought they pulled it down.
Yeah, somebody actually lives there. So the only visit you can get was obviously just visiting the outside of the house.
Oh,
that was it.
It's a dead end road there, so it's sort of like the Hinsdale house. You go down a dead end street, and then you turn around and kind of come back. And it's like when we were chasing the melon heads in Ohio. We went down and hit a dead end street.
Yeah, the difference was they fenced it off. I thought originally it was to keep a lot of the paranormal investigators and thrill seekers out, only for me to later find out that bridge that was in Kirtland had washed away. So that's why they fenced it up. We didn't know, of course, we didn't know at the time, but we couldn't pursue our investigation of these creatures.
Yeah, and all those wood people, the woodmen, they were standing outside their houses, and you were getting nervous because you thought they were going to come out and shoot.
Yeah, I was like, these were your typical backwoodsmen who lived out in the woods. So something tells me, obviously, you make one wrong turn, if you stick around too long, those guys most likely were going to meet you out there with a shotgun. So I was starting to get more nervous about that
Then
than
chasing the melon heads.
Yeah,
I would be a little more embarrassed saying that we're trying to find the melon heads.
I was
They would
thinking
probably.
even when we were he had to park, and I'm like sitting in the car still, and I'm trying to tell. I did a live video. I was telling people because not everyone's heard of these creatures, but even then, I was expecting at any freaking minute I was going to hear that. I thought it was going to hear the shot, sound of a gun clanking.
Yeah. Well, tell me about melon heads.
So the melon heads, they're a type of cryptids. Cryptid or a group of cryptids, I would say. They're not as like well known in this case, like you'd see like, with Bigfoot or the Mothman, but they have kind of got a legacy. They are described as these small humanoid beings with these unusually large heads that occasionally emerge from their hiding places to attack people. Now, the name and the description may sound funny, but the actual reports and encounters are quite terrifying, honestly.
Terrifying.
And
what do they do when they attack?
I don't know exactly. I know they do set up traps and stuff like out in the woods. Like anyone that ventures into their territory, they're known to be cannibalistic. And
I was going to say they're cannibals.
Yeah, they're basically kind of like they're like backwoods cannibals. I think they might have even been served as the inspiration for Wes Craven's horror film "The Hills Have Eyes" from the 70s.
That's where I heard. Okay, because I knew I had heard of melon heads, but I was having so much trouble placing that.
Yeah, it's pretty much like what you see in the movie. The only difference compared to The Hills Have Eyes and the real life melon heads is that in The Hills Have Eyes, it takes place out in the desert region. In the melon heads case, they live out in the forest and mountainous, like secluded areas. And people often want there are so many different versions of like what the melon heads are, but there's often two stories that usually follow with it, and it features that these creatures were originally children, and that they were under the watch of a mysterious doctor by the name of Dr. Crow, which some cases, aka Dr. Melonhead. And the first story was that he was like working for the government, and was either experimenting with radiation either lived during the late 1800s, early 1900s, or working during the Civil War, World War I or II, or during the Great Depression. Depends which version you hear. And his family, his children were exposed to a lot of radiation, and his wife became very ill. The government, as a result, did this cover up, gave him this nice piece of land out in Chardon, and was like, hey, just keep quiet about this. Now, the second story, obviously, it's a little bit more sinister, but it's the most notorious version, where you have Dr. Crow once again, but this time he was working at an orphanage or a hospital, and he was experimenting on children, some of which were already suffering from deformations and the so-called, as we now know today, hydrocephalus, which is water in the brain. And, the sad part was, if this really did happen, we're talking again, like the early, basically the Great Depression in the 1930s, unlike today, where, we have orphanages or group homes or foster cares for kids where, CPS always checks in to make sure that they're in good condition, they're in a safe environment. Well, they didn't have that, of course, back then. So unfortunately, nobody knew what was going on behind those walls. And these were just vicious experiments. These were literally atrocities. And he ended up creating just basically some of these kids died, but he also ended up creating like a bunch or a tribe, if you will, of these kids that became like, not only did he inject more fluid into their heads, which made their heads even larger to even more unrecognizable features where they weren't even looking human anymore. They became feral, cannibalistic, razor sharp teeth. And the story goes that after all this horrific abuse, the children eventually fight back. They finally had enough and apparently set the entire orphanage on fire. Not really sure if we know if the doctor actually died or somehow managed to escape.
I would
But
imagine they took care of him.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
there's some stories, not sound graphic, where they did actually kill him, where they cut him up into pieces, as revenge for all the abuse that they took, and as well as their friends and siblings that were killed by him. But either way, after the orphanage burned down, they took refuge into the nearby woods, and apparently that's where they've been ever since. Well, people are thinking, well, if these were children, that happened over 90 years ago, like, wouldn't you think they're elderly? The way I see it most likely is probably the original Melonheads, I think, have since probably died, but these are probably new
They were
generations.
procreating. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's either nowadays it's basically through cannibalism and inbreeding. So there's these new generations, and they say that they look even worse than the previous generation. And the descriptions about them go, for those who've encountered them, is that they're usually described as 3 to 4 feet tall, pale, large-headed, hairless individuals with veins popping out of the heads. They're said to make animalistic, they're said to make animalistic type sounds in order to communicate with each other. Razor sharp teeth, glowing or dark red eyes. They usually come out at night.
Sounds like my baby pictures.
Yeah, so like, but yeah, I mean, it's like,
You're a mess.
But yeah, so like that's basically what, biped, 2 legs. They either have like dirty clothes or ripped up or torn clothing, usually stained with blood or other substances. But a lot of people, if you really want to compare them, they probably look more like how aliens probably look, based on their descriptions.
That you realize that's just like one of our trips to Ohio. We did all the stuff we're telling you about. And then the other time we wound up in Kent State. And we stayed in Kent, Ohio. And then Nick was talking about this haunted house he saw on one of these scary shows. And it was one of the shows he said he can't even watch to this day. But then we went by the house where it all supposedly happened.
Yeah, I never thought we'd actually come to the real house. That was, if you've seen that show, Paranormal Witness.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so then let me ask you a question. Do you remember the episode that was called Nightmare on Chestnut Street? It was with those 3 college students that stayed at a house. They were being terrorized by this demonic woman that was there. Yeah. We found the real house, and never in my life.
It was really the real house.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We found the real house because it was on Chestnut Street. I think it actually looked far more ominous in reality.
Did you do that on purpose?
In a way, it was just kind of curiosity, but obviously we couldn't really go into, because it's still a residential location. So we only stood, just kind of approached the house for a minute, and then we immediately left.
Well, the paranormal investigations doesn't mean you necessarily have to go in the place. There's just enough about around the grounds and the stuff that happens around there in the treks to and from. Yeah. It's like like with Kent State, you go in the parking lot where all those shootings took place, and you could see the monuments all coned off in the actual parking lot where all the killings took place at Kent State.
Yeah, 1970.
And we did investigation there as well.
We did, and it was a perfect timing too, because that was on the 50th anniversary of those events that occurred back in 1970. And there's, I don't know if you've ever seen it, Kat. There's kind of a notorious picture of me that Tom took of me standing in front of the parking lot, with my back turned against the camera, just taking a quick moment of silence.
Yeah.
For these kids that their lives were taken too soon.
Well, they were. I mean, anytime that you have a situation like that, there's always going to be, people want to say, oh, well, they're resting in peace. And I'm like, well, but they were murdered.
They were only 19, 20 years old too.
Yes.
So like how young they were.
Yes. And, and it was such a sudden loss of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not supposed to happen, because, that's just not supposed to happen. I would think that there would be a lot of energy around that environment.
There was. In fact, I actually did have some investigators who reacted to the pictures, and they said they even kind of got the readings off the photograph, and they said that they were apparently around me. So now I could basically say that whether or not I had the intention, I made definitely contact with those kids. And of course, not surprising, while we were walking around, I had my music playing. Not surprisingly, I was playing that song "For Dead in Ohio" by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. That's the first thing you think of immediately is that song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet you would get reaction to that.
I think in some way we definitely did. And it was definitely something I was not expecting. Honestly, I thought we were just going to be there for a few minutes, but they even have booklets of like the tour, like kind of like a tour of like where this all occurred back in May of 70. And at one point too, I was looking something up about the massacre, and not surprisingly, because this was a very famous photo, there's that famous picture of where one of the kids was shot down, and then there's someone like kneeling over practically. And that was the first picture, which I don't know if you guys know, that girl, I didn't even realize how old she was only 14 years old at the time when that picture was taken. And she was not even from the school. She came from another state to come out to the protests because, this was all involving Vietnam and whatnot at the time. And she's still alive today. She's like in her, I think she's like in her late 60s, early 70s now, I think. And she still comes out whenever they have a commemoration for the Kent State Massacre.
Was the victim that she was over, was that somebody related to her?
I don't know if it was someone
she was so young.
I don't know if it was someone that was related to her, but it was just an unnecessary killing that occurred when the Ohio National Guard just came down. Because you have to remember, even though this was at Kent State University, the fact that she was only 14 also tells me too, this was not only just involving college kids, there were high school kids that were at this thing too. So it attracted everybody's attention.
In that instance, though, that would have been a logical supposition. I mean, not to open fire on anybody, but the supposition would have been that they were all students.
They were all students. And
but they would not have expected there to be children involved in that group of students, because A, why would you involve somebody younger than you and have them come into that environment? But B, the people that were shot didn't expect that to happen either. But that's what people don't understand, is that when you start having civil unrest, if it starts getting out of hand, it has to be stopped, but it shouldn't ever be stopped like that was.
These were just kids that were protesting against the Vietnam, knowing that a lot of their friends who had graduated from high school or college prior that were now being drafted. This was still at a time when kids, unless you were going to college or you had like a really good job, you were going to go to war. And the only
because my godfather was shot. Well, they don't know who shot him in Vietnam, but he was killed in Vietnam, and Vietnam is something that I hated. And I was so young, I didn't really, but my friends didn't have a dad, and we were only, the oldest was 2 years older than me, and I think I was 7, maybe 8. And my dad was supposed to have been drafted too, because he was Special Forces, 82nd Airborne Green Beret. And he got transferred out of that unit like 2 weeks before they shipped out, because they had opened a jump training facility, and my dad got transferred over there to be an instructor. So my godfather went with the rest of the unit, all of whom were my dad's friends. And
what year was that?
When I was 7, would have been 68.
Oh, so that
I was going to say, I was going to say it had been around 1968, because I was like 10 years old or something at that time.
Well, not to mention that was when they really started drafting a lot of these kids out to Vietnam, and I also have a few relatives of my own who also served in Vietnam in the late '60s, early '70s. Even though they seem like today, I mean, yes, they're older, and they may look like just like any other normal average citizen, but you just know deep down inside they were never the same after they came home. So I know exactly how you feel, because
none of them were the same when they came home, because the Vietnamese were relentless and ruthless and did not follow rules of war.
Especially back then, it was the first time a war was ever shown on live television.
That's correct. Yeah, so it was. So when you look at something like what happened in this case of the Kent State massacre, which was not, it was just such unnecessary, because this was a peaceful protest to begin with. Everybody
there was a peaceful protest to begin with, and then it got out of hand.
It got out of hand, but in the end, everybody just wanted this war to be over, and everybody just wanted to have, they just wanted to have their families, their friends, their brothers, fathers, etc., just to come home. Yeah, that's all they basically asked for in the end. So it was,
and that was a war with no reason, really.
Yeah, it really was.
I felt
that's why in 1969 everybody wanted to go to Woodstock to have fun.
Yeah.
But it's a music festival. That was to kind of protest, kind of like a protest when you really think about it.
No, that was an acid trip for everybody there. Yeah. That was not a protest. That was in no way a protest.
Those were all the draft dodgers that wanted to go away to have fun.
Yeah.
But because I actually interviewed a woman who was there, and it was a lot of it was interesting to have that conversation. She was so cool. But it was just one big happy acid trip with good music.
Watch the movie, Nick. The movie's like 4 hours long.
I know, it's like a documentary film. It's like
it's a documentary. It's the music and the documentary all put into one. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And when I was talking to her about it, she was just like, "It was great." And I'm like, "I bet it was. I wish I could have been there."
I've actually seen
trotting in the mud, and then people running around naked.
All kinds of stuff in the mud.
I actually had seen. I'm just going to throw this out because this is kind of funny, and this was almost 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago, my dad and my siblings, we ended up seeing a concert of I can't remember his name. He's the lead singer of Claret's Creedwater Revival, John
Haggerty.
Yeah, that's we saw him, and even I gotta admit, even for his age, I mean, I know it's been almost 10 years with the time we saw him. Even at his age, he was still really good at performing. I mean, he was just like, it was almost like still living.
Look at the Stones.
That only gets better with the time.
Yeah, well, and he says to us,
Jagger is incredible.
Yeah, I've seen him too. I mean, but in this case, John Fogerty, he tells us this quick story when he was on the stage when we saw him. He's like saying that in 1969, that he found out that the band was signed to perform at this concert that was called Woodstock, and of course, like a lot of bands, they didn't really think much of it. They just thought, well, it's probably just going to be another concert, just like any other concert.
Well, nobody knew what that was going to evolve into. I mean, that's what was so interesting about that.
Yeah, nobody did. CCR was no exception to it, and they ended up performing, I think, like during like the late evening hours, I think, and they tried to play, but everyone, again, like you said, was on this acid trip, so nobody was really,
including the musicians.
Yeah, it's like nobody was really paying attention. But he said
they had those terrible storms during Woodstock.
I mean, it was just like, but so like nobody was paying attention. They were almost like ready to like just kind of quit and leave the stage. But he looks over because he hears this voice all the way out in the distance, and he looks, and there's this guy standing in the dark with a lighter, flickering. He's like, "Hey, don't worry, John, we're with you." They ended up staying on the stage. As he said, we performed that night because of that guy, whoever that guy was.
I think that's a great story.
Yeah.
And it's I wonder a lot of times events like that, okay? Events that were so dramatic and so iconic, and we all have seen the the love fests stuff from that era and such, but that period was so full of angst and anger and fear and frustration. And then when you've got Woodstock and everybody's wasted and tripping, and
Peace, love, and rock and
somebody
roll.
tripping is totally different from somebody stoned.
Yeah.
And so that energy is weird. And then you've got the chemicals that are making it weirder, because that's all acid is the brain getting a free ride there. And so don't you wonder if some of that energy is just enmeshed in that field?
Well, they
Because
had
it has to be.
They were selling tickets to the event though, and they knew how many people that they wanted to attend that event. And then what happened was other
Word
people
got
got
out.
word of it, and
Yeah.
people found their way into the event. That's where the chaos all took
originally
place.
like 100,000 people, originally, but that like tripled the number immediately.
Well,
Oh yeah,
it wasn't 100,000 originally. It may have been 100,000 at the final.
That's
total.
But-
Yes.
But if that was even a real number for that. But the thing of it was just somebody's cow field.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a public venue.
Yeah.
Max Bernard Yaskert, he was the one that allowed this area to basically become a concert stage. And I actually found out that because I know I haven't seen, like you said, the film yet, Tom. I heard he's even featured in the movie. Like he's like the first person that speaks out in the concert.
That would be cool.
Yeah, he spoke about, that it was just supposed to be just a fun event, and he even refers to everybody as kids, because as I actually, come to think of it now, I've seen the clip. He says, and I call you kids because I have kids of my own that are just about the same age as you guys. And
that was the farmer, but the guy to put on the event was only in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
No, Max Yaskerd was in his 50s.
Really?
That was the
farmer.
That was the farmer.
Yeah,
the guy that event on and fought to get the land and everything. He was only in his 20s.
Yeah, the coordinators were all they were pretty much about the same age.
Yeah.
They were all like in their 20s, maybe.
Yeah, because they were the ones that were just trying to get a summer of love versus
to escape the war. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of those coordinators are still alive today. So they still tell the
attendees are.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Max Yasker passed away a few years after Woodstock in 1973. And according to what I read was that he did not get the best reception after the event was over because there was so much damage to the property and the surrounding areas that he was not this well-liked guy in town. He was even not allowed to even shop in the local grocery store anymore. But interestingly, he never regretted his decision. He stuck with it. He was approached at one point, ironically enough, for a second concert in a row for a 1970 revival. But considering how big this was already, he's like, nope, not after. I'm glad I did it for the first time, but I'm not doing it again.
Yeah.
Especially with what I'm dealing with now. I'm going to go back to what I was meant to do, which was just being a simple dairy farmer. So
the problem was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang wasn't entertainment enough to keep people home.
Oh, you were funny.
Because that came out in 1968. So yeah, poor Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was supposed to be the thing to keep you away from thinking about the war and everything else. And people just didn't have it. They wanted to go have their own fun.
Yep.
Wouldn't you just love to go out and investigate there, though?
I really think about that a lot. Just imagine the amount of energy.
Oh my God!
Imagine the the music that you could capture as an EVP.
Oh yes,
I
that
mean,
or
that
use
would
the music,
be
or use the music itself,
use the
like
music
as a
and get
trigger
the
on something.
party. You could get the
Oh,
party sounds.
oh, Janis Joplin screeching over the EVP. Yeah.
I'd be all right
Yeah.
with that.
You imagine like you investigate what an area like that dairy area of Woodstock, and then all of a sudden you start smelling something. What the hell is that smell? And then all of a sudden it's
And
like,
thank you for sharing. I mean, you know,
yeah, it's like all of a sudden thinking, the hell's going on with me now?
but I was so focused earlier. But
Can
you
Well,
you
know,
imagine-
I had
can you
never had a
imagine,
problem
you
with
know,
that in the early '70s. Going to a movie downtown Chicago, smelling that.
yeah,
Can you
and
imagine
it's
if
so
you got?
distinctive.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you got, basically on the acid trip or the investigation, and all of a sudden a cop car pulls up, like, okay, where's the stuff? It's like, I don't know.
It's
I don't know where.
gone.
I don't
It's
have any. I have no idea how this occurred.
That
Yeah,
would, and I mean,
it came
seriously,
over as
because,
one of our devices.
but you know, really, because when we go to battlefields, when we go to like, I've never, and I would never have equipment at the 9/11 memorial.
Yes.
But when my daughter lived in New York, they had just opened it, and or it might have been opened a year. But anyway, there was a fire event in one of the buildings nearby, and one of the best pictures I've ever caught, because I'm a photographer, but one of the best pictures I've ever caught was of the chief of this unit standing in the doorway where they had taken the call, just looking at the memorial.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and I've never shown that picture to anybody, and I won't. But when I realized that that was the unit that would have been responding, I went over and was talking to one of the guys in the truck. And I was just like, I'm from Alabama. A friend of mine died here, but not anything like the heroes that were your friends and your coworkers. And I just want you to know that the people in Alabama still hold you in our thoughts, prayers, and our hearts. And thank you for being who you are. And while I was talking to him, the guy driving the truck was getting ready to go. I started to pull off, and the guy turned around and banged on the window and said, "She's talking here." And, so he let me, they stopped, and we finished having a conversation. And you can feel, you can feel everything there.
No, I'm
You can
sure.
feel everything, every emotion that is there. And, like when I was in Scotland, they won't let you even have equipment on Culloden battlefield, right? And you shouldn't, I feel like, have equipment out doing an active investigation at Gettysburg.
Right.
I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
sometimes ground is just holy.
Well, I was talking
But
to Nick, and I said all these adventures, and we never took out a
yeah,
the camera we took out, but
yeah,
we never took out a video camera and recorded anything. So I bought. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh
I
It's a
wow.
can.
it's a body cam. I can wear it,
Awesome.
so I don't have to worry about the. And then the other thing I got is our little new talking device.
Yes.
Oh, where did you get that? An Epic box?
It's an epox box. It's a you may not totally agree with it because it's like an app, but you let it program, and then what you do is you talk to it, and then you ask questions, and then it's got a light up for yes and no, and it has a voice, and it actually says yes, no, and sometimes it even says yes, 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 yes if it's real strong, or it'll go no, 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 no if it's real, if it's real positive.
Sure.
It's quite a
Yes.
bright blue light it gives off.
Huh?
It's quite a bright blue light it gives off.
Oh,
It
it's
is.
huge. If it when it starts doing the yes and no's, I had it here, and I was just like playing with the yes and no's, and there's some long pauses and stuff, and then once it starts, my God, it's like a regular conversation. Yes, And I said, do you mind if I ask you more questions? It goes, no, 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 no. It was hilarious.
That could have gone either way, Tom.
Yeah, yeah. But I told Nick, I haven't seen Nick since before Christmas. So,
Yeah, it's been
you
quite
know,
a while.
I was going to make an attempt to come out for his little, what was it party? The other party, the
Oh,
Valentine's Day party.
for Valentine's Day, yeah.
Valentine's Day party, and I knew darn well I wasn't going to make it, and it's probably a good thing that I had another thing to go to on the Friday night, because I don't think you stayed home. You went out, and I could not have.
We went to go see that movie Hard Eyes, which actually was pretty good.
Yeah, well, I could have probably did the movie part, but if we went, like took a drive downtown or something, my God, I said,
No, we just ended. I'll just say we just ended up going to Steak and Shake afterwards, for dinner, and just
okay.
we kind of called it a night afterwards. My other friends, well, Don had to work early the next morning.
He always has to work.
Wanted to stick around, but they had to get home. It was mainly most importantly because of all the snow that was coming down.
Oh yeah, that was the other. That was the other thing that I was happy that I didn't go out in that snow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad here, though.
I have to admit, it was really nice looking.
Well, yeah, until you run off the road somewhere.
But y'all sent that here. I have a real issue with that. Okay. And my bestie Lori, she's in chat. I sit there and I'm just like,
this isn't supposed to be happening.
No, y'all have to really
what's
work.
What's going on here?
Y'all really have to work harder at keeping this there.
I actually did.
Because I've got like 80 degrees here today. I want to keep that.
I actually
don't send me anything else.
I said at one point, I thought to myself, when we had all the snow coming down on Valentine's Day, I was like thinking, where the hell was all the snow on Christmas Day?
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When people want it.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
I know. But see, we can't do that here because we don't have any way of getting rid of it. We don't know what to do with it. That's why we appreciate the thought, guys, but no more. No more. Don't send me any more snow.
Well, Nick, where was the place we went to? It was in Iowa, wasn't it? Wasn't it Davenport?
Yeah, Davenport.
Yeah, we were. We went to one of Kelly's paranormal conventions. It was in Davenport.
Yeah.
Or was it Davenport or Dubuque? Dubuque.
I think actually now I was gonna say, now that you said that, I think it was Dubuque.
Dubuque. Davenport is down by the what do they call that? That's not Twin Cities. That's where Rock Island and
it's
Rock Island.
It's like right along the Iowa-Illinois border.
Yeah, we went there. But when we were in Davenport, when we were coming back from Davenport, that's when that snow was hitting Chicago on Halloween.
Oh my!
Yeah, well, it wasn't on hot. Well, no, I think it was in November. But either way, it was coming down pretty fast.
No, I thought that was the day it snowed on Halloween. We were coming back from Iowa on that day.
You know what? Okay, yeah. Okay, I take that back. Yeah, I think it was.
And I literally dropped my miles down because I was watching the snow go west from west to east. So I knew it was going towards Chicago. So I was staying behind it because it wasn't snowing. And we didn't hit the snow until we almost got out into the suburbs of Illinois. Chicago.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And then when we got back to Nick's house, the snow was like all over the place.
Yeah, it was covering the ground at that point.
Yeah.
So when you have weather like that, I mean, because there's been all kinds of stuff, and we've only got about 20 minutes left, and I wanted to ask this question of both of you.
Sure.
So, but I want you each to answer separately.
Okay.
Y'all have been so very many places.
Uh-huh.
Y'all are road trippers. You love getting out. You both love investigating, and you love gathering evidence. But separately, and if they're the same place, whoever goes second is going to have to change their place. Not really. But where is your favorite place that y'all have investigated, and what was the best part of that experience for you? Who wants to go
Um,
first? Tom?
well, I think it was when we did the tours of Joliet Prison. We
Ooh,
did that for well, just the one season. I think we did it 4 times. We took people
okay.
on tours, and then the last one that we did at Joliet Prison, Chris Fleming, and came out,
Fleming.
and he was doing like a investigation. And who else was coming? What's her name? That's staying in your house, your new house?
Oh,
Mary, Mary,
Mary, yeah.
Mary. Yeah, she was out there with Chris Fleming, and we were taking people through the tours and stuff. And when we were out there, I went to check out the place where the Warrens stayed, and then I went up the stairway to kind of go into the thing. And then when I was coming down the stairs, I got pushed and literally almost stumbled down two steps of the staircase, and it was this like uneven slab and thing. And what's like, Nick was down by the medical building, so then and Dustin was with me at that time. So then Dustin and I said, "Come on." What happened? If you didn't push me, I got pushed down these stairs. So let's go back to the medical building. And then we tried to find Nick. And then that was like the last time the gymnasium was open to the public, because even when we went into the building, the boards and the walls were like warped and really bad. And when you're walking on the gym floor, you could feel the boards, and my God, it was so dangerous.
Yeah.
And then, so we took the tour people away from the actual people that were doing the tours. If that doesn't sound kind of crazy, but we took the people into these places, and we were doing the tours, and the tour guides from the
Joliet
Historical Society wouldn't come into these buildings with us.
They wouldn't. And
why? Were they afraid?
No, I think they were embarrassed that we knew more, and the people were more interested in walking around with us than they were. And then when I asked her a question, in case someone asked me the question, she says, "Well, I'll tell you, and then you could tell them." I said, "What's the point of you being here for a tour, and you're not telling these people about?" So I thought, well, this is interesting. And then after that, they wouldn't have us back again.
Yeah, it seemed like we had so much more knowledge about this person than they did, that
interesting.
It became basically like jealousy to them.
Right.
That we knew, especially, as you guys know all too well, my knowledge of history and stuff. I mean, they saw that I pretty much had done my homework, and it obviously upset and offended them. And yeah, right after that, they never did let us back in there again. I mean, we've still to this day been trying to get back into the prison, but
it's not open anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, they still do the tours, but they don't really do as much of the paranormal stuff like they used to. They pretty much had thrown us out.
No, the building collapsed. That's what happened. Was the really? Building collapsed.
Okay, I didn't know anything about that, honestly.
The main building collapsed from the 3rd floor all the way down to the ground floor.
Oh my
God!
And so so that was their shortcut to come in for the tours. So now you had to walk all the way around the street into the main gate, and then they started doing tours, but it was like self-guided tours. You guided yourself to walk around, and there's little plaques that tell you what this or that was, but it was never the same after that. It's like people had said that they even wrote it in a review. This is the tour guides were awesome on our tour, and they wrote that right on the historical site page. They said the tour guides were awesome. Tom and Nick were fantastic. And so after that, then we didn't get invited back. Well, then
That's
there was that last one with Chris Fleming. Chris Fleming took a group out, and they were supposed to alternate. We had 3 groups, and they were supposed to alternate, and no one alternated. We all stayed with the same group, and they were a little disappointed because the people that paid all the money for the tour didn't get to go with Chris and that, and then the organizers didn't make sure it happened.
Right.
So that they wrote some pretty nasty stuff, but they said we were fantastic.
Yeah, we did. We did our
Yeah.
job perfectly well. And what I was even more surprised of when we had these tours, and it's evidence. I shot live videos of the investigations that we took. This was even a location that even attracted a lot of like high school students. We had like kids like around 16, 17, 18 years old that were out to the thing. And a lot of them often bonded with me because I was being the youngest person, even though I was like 25 years old at that point. But their parents wanted to know a lot more. They heard me talking about this. There was not a time where sometimes I had to repeat some of this information over and over again because some people never got the information about this. That's the other thing too. I think what made us even better than the Historical Society was when you go on these tours, they often usually will just tell the story once because they're on a tight schedule. And if you missed out on it, well, that's your loss.
Yeah.
For me, though, being so big into history and someone who loves to socialize all the time, I was willing to tell that story as many times as I could. So that way those people could never miss that chance. They didn't miss a chance of, hearing something important. So we definitely did our job way better than the Historical Society.
Well, see, that was on the men's side of the prison. They had the women's side. It was across the street. That place was never open to the public. The men's side was the one that everybody did the tour because that's where they filmed the Blues Brothers. And then the gate you go in was the actual gate of the Blues Brothers. And then when they started doing the self-guided tours, I think whether they're still doing those or not, I am not 100% sure if they're even doing the tours of the male you know what I mean? The male side. Yeah. And then they opened up a haunted house on the female side of the prison, and so I don't know if they're going to start opening the female side of the prison up, but we don't know. We haven't been up there since that time. And then Chris Fleming, something went on with Chris Fleming after that because he just got back from Vegas and he was doing the opening of the Haunted Museum with Zach Baggins. And then things didn't go too good with that live show. So it was the following week we did the last tour of the Joliet prison, and Ursula Bielski, she was the one that was coordinating the events, the ghost hunts. And so now you can't park on that side, I think, or it's very limited. The police will chase you out. Then they have a parking area in the back over by the railroad crossing, but then I don't even think they allow you to go back there because it's kind of dangerous. So the only place you could park is if there's a security guard in the parking lot, and then you'd have to walk all the way up the street to the gates where, if you saw the Blues Brothers where the gates open like that, that's where you enter into the men's side of the prison. And then before that, they had the big fire in the prison, and when you walk in, the whole right-hand side of the prison was all charred from the fires.
Okay.
So the roof collapsed too.
Those buildings were gone.
Yeah.
And so the only place to go is to the left. And then into the left, you would go into the cafeteria area. And then beyond the cafeteria, kind of run together with the gymnasium, which now is closed. So they didn't allow any people to go into the cafeteria anymore because of the fact that it leads into the other thing. And Nick and I have our favorite spot in there. We found it. We had to cut through the cafeteria seating area. And when we walked into the doorway, and there was a staircase, a real steep, long staircase that goes all the way straight up.
How cool.
And it was like a utility room on the top of it. And Nick had
boiler room,
Yeah, Nick had some really interesting experiences up that stairwell.
I don't know what it was. When we got up to that boiler room, there was something definitely very negative. And we had a medium with us. She was really picking up. I don't think we were there for no more than maybe 10 minutes. I mean,
no, none of us went back up there.
Yeah, we were kind of on a schedule with the group, but we had to be up. It was just, there was just something not good about that boiler room. That mostly everybody, even if we wanted to go back, most of them did not want to go back up there for whatever reason. So, and that definitely was a feeling that I certainly have never felt before. I don't know what it was that made that room so bad. It was very, very dark.
Even over the medical building, that was like they had the isolation. There was nothing wrong with the isolation ward. You stay on the first floor, maybe go to the second floor, but you can't go to the third floor because the ceilings were collapsing on it. And then the other one was the medical building, and you almost had to stay on the lower levels of the medical building because the top floors were caving in. So whether or not the Historical Society was taking this money and actually putting it for improvements or building up the place or not, it didn't show. I mean, they cleaned up the guardhouse so they could put a little store in there. They could sell tickets and merchandise, but they didn't do anything to the prison. And then eventually, what was it, 2 years ago, the collapse of the building, and then I lost track after that.
Even though we wanted to go back to investigate, I mean, when we were doing the tours that we were doing, which couldn't have also been a perfect more time because it was close to Halloween. And yes, there were a few nights where it was freezing, but what? Yeah, I mean, but you know what? We'd rather take the cold than the heat. But either way, well, I mean, at least I would.
Not here.
But anyways,
well, those cells were rock.
Yeah, they were
metal and rock, so it held all that cold. Yeah,
they really. I mean, you got full concrete practically in that like any prison facility. But after as much as we love to go back and investigate, we were pretty much helping out in the tours in the hopes that a lot of this money was going to go to the prison. But after the Historical Society threw us out, despite our best efforts of trying to resume that kind of stuff, I knew that just within a period of a few days that in spite of our best efforts, that there probably wasn't going to be very much that we could do. We could still try to, put the word out, trying to, say, well, let's start doing this so we can make this, we could make a lot of this money go for the prison and then hopefully have it rebuilt. But unfortunately, our messages were ignored.
Right.
Oh, and I gave Nick an opportunity to do something he never thought he would ever do in his entire life. Yes. It was to actually crank the gates himself and open up the big gates.
Yep.
Get out of town.
And
cool.
He offered it to me, and I started it, and I said, Nick, come over here. I said, you got to do this. And he, what? I said, you're going to crank the gates open. And so
That's
Nick
so
had
cool.
this big smile on his face. I don't think it would ever come off.
Did you ever take a picture of it? I don't remember if you took a picture.
Us and cameras, we're there for the moment, but we don't document anything much. So I've been trying to do little mini movies. I've been trying to do little mini movies, and then I get Nick involved for a little bit, and he's doing a little like the man on the street type of thing. But we never put anything together. We got absolutely nothing to post or show anybody, except where Nick's got that one video that he's got to get turned over to that one show that
Paranormal caught on camera. My first piece of evidence I ever captured.
Oh,
cool. But now it's like almost 3 years old now.
Yeah,
they won't care. They run them forever. They run them forever and ever and ever.
But I mean, he hasn't turned it in yet. It's been 3 years, and he showed everybody these clips and stuff, but he never turned them into to Brian, and so we can put it on the show.
I know. I've again, with so much projects I've been working, it's been difficult to keep up with everything. And also, it should be noted too, I mean, with all these podcasts I do on this network,
yes,
it definitely runs your schedule, and it definitely can cause a lot of interferences. So, not necessarily, I have not forgotten about it. I just haven't had the opportunity.
I'm going to tell you because I want to see it. So you need to get it out there.
Yes, I know.
And this is pot kettle black, okay? Because I don't do it either.
Yeah.
No, it's actually interesting, and I did have this idea, about sending this piece of footage. I thought about sending it out to 2 TV shows. As a matter of fact, Paranormal Caught on Camera, and also basically its British counterpart, Unexplained Caught on Camera, because The reason for that, it's a very good reason, is that when you watch Paranormal Con on camera, I mean, don't get me wrong, since we now know a couple of these guys and we become good friends with them, it's a great show. But one thing that a lot of people usually complain about with the show is that there's no, because some videos that have been featured have later been debunked, like when they've been explained. And in the show, you notice there's no skeptics. There's no one saying, well, it might actually be this or something. You know, you don't have, there's no antagonists, if you will.
Right.
In the other case, however, with Unexplained Con on camera, not only is that from the UK in this case, they do have those skeptics out there. You have,
well, get it out to them.
Yeah, so I wanted to send it out to both to get everybody's opinions on both.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember.
All right.
Karen O'Keefe is on Unexplained Con on camera, which, you know, he's a huge parapsychologist. I would definitely love to see what he would have to say about this video, because to this day, nobody has been able to come up with an explanation of what I captured.
Yep. Nope. It was interesting.
Interesting.
I got theories, but I can't prove them.
Yeah, I mean, I've approached some of the biggest skeptics out there, and they've even said to me, this was one of the few pieces of evidence in which they were absolutely sure of saying, even though kind of like what Tom said, they were just basically absolutely sure of saying, I have no idea what this is.
Well, you never saw a guy's head disappear before, and that's a hint.
Exactly.
Interesting.
A head disappear on a live guy doing an investigation. Caught on video.
And when
haven't seen that.
Well, and when you get different pieces of evidence, I mean, it's often common when you think of, like, when you get something on camera, it's usually after the footage has been captured and you review it. What we captured it while I was filming it. So I didn't actually see it with my own eyes, but I could see it through the little monitor, so I could see the activity in progress, which that's I definitely believe capturing that in progress, I think, is even far more rarer.
I think so too.
Than reviewing it.
All right, Nick, you better tell your story. We're almost out of time.
We are. You got 4 minutes, dude.
Well, I don't really have much of a story to tell in this case, but I think one of my favorite locations, it's also in, as much as I love Joliet, this one's also here in Illinois too. And I'm not just talking about one location. I'm basically talking in an entire town. And that undoubtedly would have to be Alton, Illinois, because it's often regarded as one of the most haunted small towns in America. About every corner of that town is haunted. And to this day, while we have investigated some of these locations, we haven't even gotten to all the locations. I mean, we've gotten to a few, but not to all of them yet. And I think what makes this town, so fascinating, like what draws us there. I mean, yes, Mike Ricksecker is hosting the Haunted Road Media Paracon down there for at least 2 years or so before COVID hits. But, at that time too.
Well, that's where our biggest experience came from with Mike and Shauna, and it was Dustin and me and you, where we saw the apparition of the little girl.
That's correct.
But none of us thought of pulling out a camera. None of us thought about taking a movie of it. We all
in the
froze.
heat of the moment, that goes out the wayside because you're just living it.
You were just
we're living it. The only thing we got of it is an audio version of it that Dustin had a recorder in his pocket still going at the time that we were trying to make communication with the little girl.
Okay, we have 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, a minute and a half.
So, all I'm just going to say, basically, and again, it's not just even basically the investigations itself. The fact that this was also around the time when we really started meeting a lot of different investigators from different states in this case, is I would describe Alton is, for the most part, a rather mystical place. It draws a lot of people within the subject in. To me, it's almost like it's one of those towns that it's almost like one of the seeds of paranormal power. It's like our Washington, D.C. That's where a lot of people, like, within the community come together, is in this area of Southern Illinois. And I'm hoping sometime soon to go back, but it's just such a fascinating location.
It's changing so much. Like, if you notice, I got the shirt on.
McPike, which is the most notorious location they have there.
Yeah.
And this is when I was down with Denise,
Mhm.
and I bought the shirt down there. So, yeah, so that was kind of cool. And the Mineral Springs is now being taken over by Troy Taylor, and
Oh.
he's doing his own tours there now. And he was also doing the tours at the McPike Mansion, but now I think they're pulling it from the McPike Mansion, according to what Sharon was telling us. She wasn't sure how long it was going to last. Now Sharon's doing construction now. We're almost the second landing of the whole home is almost sturdy enough to go upstairs.
Cool.
I mean, I can't say more than that, but they've been working and working and working, and now they got the side rooms open on either side, and one now is like an indoor little store now, and you can actually go in, which you couldn't really do before, and except we're standing in the foyer. But now they got the one room open where you can actually walk into the one room, and now it's like a makeshift little store now for where they can sell their merch.
Well, that is too cool. Well, we are out of time, and Victoria says you guys crack her up. In time, you better come to Texas. It's the last Lone Star Paracon. It's now or never.
Boy.
Well,
and thank you, Victoria.
give me a call sometime.
All right. So we are out the door. Thank you so much. And
All right.
you know what? You be well, sir.
I'm trying my best. I'm trying.
All right.
Thanks for
having
me.
All right. Take care.
You too. And Nick, you catch up on your rest, my friend.
Definitely.
All right. Good night, guys. And for everyone listening, thank you. We just
Thank
appreciate you being here. And I'm glad that y'all got a chance to enjoy these guys. They're awesome.
All
See
right.
you next
Thank
time.
you.
Good night.
Same
All right,
cat
bye,
time,
everyone.
same cat channel.